Welcome back to The Deep End. You are listening to The Deep Dive, and we are right in the middle of our special series, Building a Human.
We are indeed.
And if you've been with us for the last few sessions, you know we are really trying to go beyond just, parenting tips or the usual educational theories.
It's more like we're looking at the blueprints, the architecture of a developing human being.
Right, the architecture of the soul.
Exactly. It's a construction project, really. And if that foundation is shaky, if the bedrock isn't solid, well, the whole building is at risk.
And today, we are looking at a piece of that foundation that 99% of us just take it for granted. It's the standard operating system
For almost everything.
for parenting, for schools, even how we manage employees. We're talking about the carrot and the stick.
Yes, the twin pillars of behavioral control. It is just everywhere.
It's everywhere. And before we start, taking a sledgehammer to those pillars, or maybe I should say, before we let Maria Montessori take her sledgehammer to them, we really need to thank the partners who make this kind of deep work possible. This series is a collaboration with the Love for All and Service to All Foundation, which you may know as the Al-Mahaba Foundation, and also with Dar el-Khalima Publishing House.
And it feels like a really fitting partnership for today's topic, doesn't it?
How so?
Well, that phrase, service to all, it implies a certain kind of relationship, a certain dignity you afford to another human being.
Okay.
And what we are going to discover today in our source, The Secret of Childhood, is that our standard methods of reward and punishment, they often strip the child of that very dignity.
Wow. That's a heavy way to start, but it's important. So let's set the scene for everyone listening. I just want you to imagine the toolkit that, we all grew up with, or the one you're probably using right now. You want your kid to do their homework.
You offer a treat.
You offer a treat, extra screen time, whatever. That's the carrot. Your kid, hits his brother, breaks a vase.
He goes to the naughty corner.
This is a privilege. That's the shtick.
It seems so logical. It feels like physics, action, reaction.
It is perfectly logical if you're training an animal
Right.
or, programming a very simple machine. Input, output.
Right.
But what Montessori argues is that when you apply this purely mechanical logic to a developing human spirit, you're not just managing behavior, you are actually introducing a contaminant.
A contaminant. That's a really strong word.
She goes even further. In The Secret of Childhood, she doesn't just call rewards and punishments tools that can be misused. She calls them obstacles.
Obstacles to what?
Obstacles to the soul. She basically suggests they are a kind of poison to the natural development of the human will.
Okay, I want to pause on that because that is going to sound absolutely radical to a lot of people listening. We're not just saying, oh, here's a new technique you can try.
No, we're saying the entire premise of do this, get that, the whole thing is actually harmful.
That's precisely it. The whole deep dive today is centered on this one fundamental question. How can a human being learn to be good, I'm truly internally good, without the promise of a prize or the threat of a penalty?
That's a great question.
Because you have to ask yourself, right? If the only reason you don't steal is because you're afraid of going to jail, are you actually a good person?
Or are you just a careful criminal?
Exactly. You're just cautious. Your morality is external.
One is internal, one is external. That's the difference.
And this is Montessori's big, bold claim that we're going to unpack. She says that when you raise a child on rewards and punishments, you create a human being who operates like a slave.
And you're using that word in a very specific psychological way here.
Yes, absolutely. Not in a historical sense, but in the sense of the will. A slave to the external. A person whose only motivations to act are one of two things. Fear or greed.
Fear of the stick?
Or greed for the carrot. There's no third option in that system.
So the whole mission for us today is to figure out if there is a third option. Can you actually nurture what Montessori called the new child? A child who, say, cleans their room or helps the friend, not because you bribe them or threaten them, but because they have this internal need for order and for work.
It really does sound like a utopia when you put it like that, doesn't it?
It sounds impossible. I'm a parent. The idea that my kid would clean up his toys just to satisfy some inner sense of order, that feels like pure science fiction.
Laugh softly.
I feel like I need that bribe just to get through the day sometimes.
And it feels that way because we've all been deeply conditioned to believe that human beings are, at their core, lazy.
Right. That we have to be pushed into action.
That the natural state of a child is resistance, and our job is to overcome it. But the evidence Montessori lays out in The Secret of Childhood points in the complete opposite direction.
And she starts with a story, right?
Yeah. She starts with an observation, a story that it completely dismantles all our assumptions from the get-go. It's the story of the metal in the nutty corner.
Okay, let's get into it, because this isn't just theory. She was the scientist. She watched. And this particular story is... it's almost funny in how absurd it is.
It is. It's tragicomedy.
Yeah.
And it highlights this complete, total disconnect between the adult's world of discipline and what's actually going on inside the child.
So paint the picture for us. Where are we?
Okay, so imagine a classroom. And this isn't one of the pristine, perfect Montessori environments we might picture today. This is early in her work, her early observations.
A more traditional setting.
Very. And in this classroom, there's a little boy who has been, misbehaving. So the teacher does what teachers did then, and honestly what many still do now. She decides he must be punished.
The naughty corner. The timeout chair.
Exactly. He's placed in a large armchair off to the side, totally isolated from the rest of the group. It is, as you said, the seat of social disgrace.
The idea being that he's physically separated to show him he's not part of the good group anymore. He's an outcast.
Right. And the logic, the adult logic is you will sit there, you will feel the shame of being excluded, you'll think about what you did, feel bad, and then you'll resolve to be better so you can rejoin us.
That's the theory.
That's the adult projection of what's happening.
Yeah.
We assume the child is sitting there, running some complex moral calculus in his head.
Contemplating his sins.
Right. But now the absurdity begins. Because in the very same room, another child has done something good, something exemplary.
The star pupil.
The star pupil. And the teacher, or maybe it was a visitor to the school, the details are a bit chaotic in the telling, has a medal, a literal, large, shiny medal of honor.
Okay.
And this medal is meant to be pinned on the chest of the good child as a public reward.
So you've got this perfect visual. The boy in the chair is bad. The shiny medal is good. It's like a morality play.
It is pure theater. But in this moment of chaos and confusion, the adult with the medal makes a mistake. Maybe they got distracted. Maybe they just didn't know which child was which. But they walk over, take this grand symbol of honor, and they pin it right on the chest of the boy in the naughty corner.
You're kidding. So the kid who is actively being punished gets the prize.
Yes. The boy sitting in the seat of shame is suddenly wearing the badge of virtue.
That's... well, it's a farce. It sounds like something out of a silent movie.
It is a complete farce. But this is the moment where Montessori, the scientist, stops seeing the comedy and starts analyzing the data. Because you have to look at the boy's reaction.
Right. What did he do?
Well, think about it. If the whole system of rewards and punishments actually meant something to him, if he was playing the game the adults think he's playing, this should have been a moment of intense confusion.
Totally. You'd expect him to, I don't know, get flustered and say, hey, this isn't for me. Or maybe he'd be smug, like, ha, I fooled you.
Or feel guilty or try to hide it. I mean, any number of reactions would make sense within that framework. But he did none of those things. Montessori watched him very, very closely. His reaction was complete and total indifference.
Indifference. He's sitting in timeout wearing a giant medal, and he just doesn't care.
He did not care. Not about the medal, and as far as she could tell, not really about the punishment either. He sort of glanced down at this shiny thing on his chest, and then he looked up.
At the teacher?
No, that's the key. He wasn't looking for approval. He wasn't looking for validation. He wasn't looking at any of the adults.
So what was he looking at?
He was watching the other children work.
The work, not the people.
He was observing the activity in the room, the movement of their hands, the puzzles they were solving, the quiet hum of concentration. And the look on his face, she wrote, was not shame, and it wasn't pride. It was longing.
Longing. Oh, that's a heartbreaking word to use there.
It is, because he wanted to be a part of that. He wanted to be in the flow of activity. And that is the absolute core insight.
Say more about that.
We, as adults, think the punishment is the corner. We think the punishment is the label of naughty. But for that child, in that moment, the real punishment was simply the inability to work.
He was cut off from his life source.
Yes. And the medal, the reward.
It was just a piece of metal. It was totally irrelevant. A prop in a play he didn't even know he was in.
Exactly. It had no meaning because it didn't connect to his actual deep-seated need.
This really throws a wrench in the whole idea that children are just constantly seeking our approval. We think they live and die by the gold star. But you're saying, in this moment at least, that gold star was meaningless compared to the simple, raw urge to be doing something productive.
That's it. Montessori realized that these adult labels we use, good boy, bad boy, reward, punishment,
Yeah.
they are just these superficial layers of paint we try to slap onto a child. They don't actually touch the soul.
So the suffering he was experiencing in that corner, it wasn't from social shame.
No, he was suffering from spiritual starvation.
Starving for meaningful work. That is such a powerful way to put it. It completely reframes why a child might misbehave in the first place.
It does.
Usually a kid acts out, we think, oh, he's being bad. But if we use this lens, maybe he's just hungry.
That is the fundamental shift. A child who is disruptive, who is unfocused, who is breaking things or hitting, very often this is a child who is profoundly bored.
I'm not bored like I need a video game to entertain me.
Not at all. Bored in the sense that my incredible human capabilities are not being used right now. Their spiritual and mental energy has nowhere constructed to go, so it explodes.
And then what do? We put them in a corner, which takes away even more of their ability to act.
We starve them further. We basically say, you are acting out because you're hungry for activity. Well, your punishment is to have zero activity. It is the most counterproductive thing we could possibly do.
And then we come along with the medal or the sticker and try to sort of patch it up.
We try to bribe them back into goodness. But as Montessori put it, when you give a starving man a medal for his bravery, you haven't fed him. You've given him something with absolutely no nutritional value for his spirit.
Okay. I want to push back a little bit here.
Is he?
Because I'm going to be the skeptical parent, listening to this on their way to work. The medal story it's a great anecdote. It's very poignant. But a medal is an abstract thing.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about something that is not abstract.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the hard currency of childhood, sugar.
Yes. The candy defense. I was waiting for this.
I mean, you cannot sit here and tell me rewards don't work. If I have a toddler screaming their head off in the grocery store and I offer them a lollipop, the screaming stops. It works. If I tell my 10-year-old he gets $5 to mow the lawn gets mowed. The behavior I want happens. So how can you possibly say it's a myth?
It works. You're right, in the sense that you achieve the immediate compliance you were looking for. The screaming stops, the lawn gets mowed. But the question Montessori forces us to ask is, at what cost? And for how long?
What do you mean?
She didn't just theorize about this, she put it to the test. She decided to go head-to-head with the most potent, most desirable reward she could think of.
Candy.
Candy. She wanted to see if what she called the low-grade motivation of sugar could compete with the high-grade motivation of concentrated work.
So she explicitly called rewards low-grade motivation.
Yes, that was her terminology. She saw it as a baser, more primitive driver.
Okay, so what was the experiment? What was the setup?
She would wait for a child to be in that state of deep, profound engagement we've talked about before, that state of flow.
Right, where they're so locked in they barely blink. Maybe they're solving a complex puzzle or carefully scrubbing a table or counting out the 1,000-bead chain.
That exact state, they are completely absorbed. And in that peak moment of concentration, she or one of her assistants would deliberately intervene.
How?
They would approach the child, praise them. Oh, that's such good work.
Mm-hmm.
And then offer them a piece of candy as a reward for their efforts.
Okay. And the skeptical parent in me expects the kid to snatch that candy, pop it in their mouth, and be thrilled.
And what happened was, to the average adult observer, completely baffling. The children would often, politely take the candy,
Okay.
but then they would just put it in their pocket and immediately, without missing a beat, turn back to their work.
They didn't even eat it.
Very often, no. She recounts stories of finding these forgotten, sticky candies in the pockets of their little work aprons days later.
Wow.
It was completely irrelevant to the satisfaction they were experiencing in that moment.
But why? I mean, that's the part that's hard to get your head around. It's candy. Kids love candy.
Because the satisfaction they were deriving from the activity itself, from the mastery of their own movements, from solving the intellectual puzzle, from creating order, was so much more powerful, so much more delicious to their spirit, that the candy was just an interruption.
It was a distraction.
It was a low-grade motivation trying to interfere with a high-grade experience.
So it's like, let me see if I get this. It's like if you're in the middle of watching the most incredible, gripping movie of your life, or you're having a deep, meaningful conversation with someone you love, and someone just taps you on the shoulder and offers you, like, a penny.
Yes, That is a perfect analogy.
You might take the penny just to be polite or to get them to go away.
Right, so you can get back to what you were actually invested in.
But you don't value the penny, you value the experience. The penny is actually an insult to the moment.
An insult to the moment. That's a great way to put it. And it completely flips our entire economic logic on its head, doesn't it?
It does. We think work is the cost, the reward is the benefit. I do the chores in order to get the candy.
That's the adult transactional model.
Yeah.
We have accepted, as a society, that most work is unpleasant. It's a disutility, as economists would say, and therefore we require compensation to endure it. But the child, this new child that Montessori observed, is operating on a totally different plane. For them, the work is the reward. The growth is the reward. The mastery is the reward.
So when we offer that candy, what message are we actually sending to them then? Subconsciously.
This is where it gets really dangerous. When you offer a bribe, you are devaluing the work. It's an insult to the activity itself. Think about it. If I said to you, I'll pay you $20 to read this book, what is your brain's immediate assumption about that book?
That it must be awful. It's boring, or it's difficult, or it's a total waste of time. Why else would you need to pay me to do it?
Precisely.
Yeah.
The hidden logic is, this task is so unpleasant, so devoid of its own value, that I must compensate you for your suffering.
Wow.
So when a parent says, if you practice your piano for 30 minutes, I'll give you a cookie, or if you read a chapter of your book, you can have more screen time, they are teaching that child, without saying a word, that music and reading are chores.
They're painful things that must be endured for a prize.
We are systematically killing the intrinsic love for these things. We take a natural human joy, the joy of learning, the joy of creating, and we rebrand it as labor. We teach the child to undervalue the activity and overvalue the prize.
We're basically creating a little mercenary.
A mercenary.
Yeah.
That's exactly the right word. Someone who does nothing for love, only for pay. And that, Montessori would argue, is the very first step toward building a spirit in slavery.
Let's really dig into that word slave, because it feels like a very aggressive, very charged word. But in the context of her book, she's building a very specific psychological argument about the human will.
She is. It all comes down to the mechanics of the will.
Yeah.
It's a simple question. Who is driving the bus?
Okay.
If the only reason I move is because you're either pushing me from behind with a punishment or pulling me from the front with a reward, then I have no internal engine. I am not driving my own life. I am being driven.
So the child who behaves perfectly at school because they are terrified of getting a detention
Is acting out of fear. And that is not virtue. It's just survival. A dog that cowers when its master raises a hand isn't being good. It's just afraid.
And on the other side, the child who gets straight A's because they want the praise, the gold star, the ice cream party.
Is acting out of greed.
Yeah.
Which is also not virtue. It's just commerce. It's a transaction.
This is it's a very confronting idea. Because what you're saying is that a lot of what we praise as good behavior in our homes and in our schools isn't actually goodness at all.
No.
It's just successful manipulation.
It's compliance.
Yeah.
And compliance and discipline are two vastly different things.
That's the difference.
Compliance is, I do what you tell me to do because you're watching. True self-discipline is, I do what is right, even when no one is watching.
And that's what we all say we want for our kids.
Of course. But our methods train the exact opposite.
So here's the scary part for any adult listening.
Yeah.
If we take your advice, if we say, okay, Montessori, you win. We take away the carrot, we burn the stick, what's left? Because I think the deep-seated fear is that if you take away those controls, what's left is just chaos. We think the child is a wild animal that has to be tamed.
That is the dominant prevailing view of childhood, isn't it? That the child is this chaotic, disorderly, primitive being that must be molded into shape by external force.
Yeah, pretty much.
But what Montessori discovered through years of observation is that when you remove all that external noise, all that pushing and pulling, you don't get chaos.
What do you get?
You make room for the internal compass to emerge.
The internal compass.
She draws this beautiful contrast between what she calls the follower, the child who is always looking outside of themselves waiting for the prize or the punishment, and the free citizen.
A free citizen. I love that term. It sounds so dignified.
It is. Because a free citizen is someone who follows their own conscience. They obey the law not because a police officer is watching, but because they believe in the law. They do what is right because it satisfies an internal need for order and justice.
Okay, but this is the million-dollar question for me. Do children have a conscience? Do they really have a natural need for order? Or is that something we have to, install in them?
And that is what she sought to answer. And her conclusion, based on what she saw, was an emphatic yes, they do. The child has a natural, I would even say biological inclination towards order, towards harmony, towards contribution.
Can you give me an example of that?
Watch a very young toddler, one who hasn't been overcorrected yet. If they see a small spill on the floor, what is their first instinct? Often.
To point at it.
Or to try and wipe it up. They'll grab a cloth and start dabbing at it. Not because they're afraid mom's going to yell at them, but because the disorder of the spill on the clean floor, it bothers their sense of order. They want to restore the harmony of their environment.
So it's an instinct.
It is. It feels genuinely good to them to restore order. It feels good to help. But, and this is the absolute tragedy of our common methods, that delicate internal mechanism, that tiny little voice inside that says, I want to make this right, it is so easily drowned out.
Drowned out by us, by the adult.
If the adult is screaming, look at this mess, clean this up right now, or you're in trouble, that internal voice is just silenced by fear.
Right.
And if the adult is cooing, oh, clean that up for mommy and I'll give you a cookie, that same internal voice is silenced by greed. The external noise becomes so loud that the internal signal gets lost.
And I'm guessing if that happens enough times, over and over,
the signal just fades. The child learns to stop listening to their own conscience because they're too busy listening for the commands of the authority figure. They stop asking themselves, is this the right thing to do? And they start asking, what do I have to do to get the prize? Or how can I avoid getting caught?
And that explains so much about adult behavior, doesn't it? We have adults who only follow the speed limit when they see a police car up ahead.
Exactly. We have raised generations of people who essentially outsource their conscience to the authorities, to the police, to their boss, to the IRS.
We want to raise kids who do the right thing when nobody's looking.
But you cannot possibly train someone to do the right thing when nobody's looking by constantly watching them and judging them. It's a logical impossibility.
That's the paradox right there.
Wow.
To build internal trust, you have to give external trust first.
You have to trust the process. You have to believe in the existence of that internal guide and then act in a way that protects it. We must believe the child wants to be good as long as we treat them with respect.
So let's get really practical for a minute. If I'm a parent or a teacher and I'm buying into this, I'm saying, okay, you've convinced me. No more rewards, no more punishments. That leaves me in a really strange position because if I'm not the judge and I'm not the jailer and I'm not the one handing out the paychecks, what is my job? Who am I in this new relationship?
It's a great question. Because you are essentially unemployed from your old job, but you have a new job description.
And what is it?
Montessori has a beautiful name for it. She calls the adult a servant of the spirit.
A servant of the spirit. That connects so directly back to the foundation supporting this whole deep dive. Love for all and service to all.
It fits perfectly. But we have to be really careful about how we define service here. Because I can hear some parents panicking already. Does this mean I'm now my child's butler? Does this mean the child is the boss?
Right. Service can sound like I'm just catering to their every whim. If they want to eat ice cream for dinner and nothing else, do I just serve them the ice cream?
No, absolutely not. Service, in this context, means serving their development. You are in service to the construction of their soul. It doesn't mean doing everything for them. It means preparing the world so that they can do it for themselves.
Okay, give me a concrete example. Let's take the classic everyday battle, clean up your toys.
Perfect.
The living room is a disaster zone. The child is refusing to clean. The old me, the warden, would say, you clean this up right now or there's no TV tonight.
The classic stick.
The classic stick. The new me, the servant of the spirit. What do I do?
Okay, so the first thing the servant does is diagnose, not command. Why isn't the child cleaning? Is it because the toy box is too heavy for them to lift? Is the shelf where the books go too high for them to reach?
So you look at the physical environment first.
You look at the environment. Are there simply too many toys out and the child is completely legitimately overwhelmed by the scale of the task? You serve them by preparing an environment where the task is actually possible.
So maybe that means having fewer toys or having a specific accessible place for every single thing.
Exactly. You make order achievable. Then you look at the interaction. You don't command, you invite. You model.
What does that sound like?
It might sound like, wow, this room has had a lot of fun in it today. Let's make it beautiful and peaceful again so it's ready for our work tomorrow. You appeal to their higher sense of order, not their lower sense of obedience.
And you might start doing it yourself.
You might start doing it yourself. Slowly, peacefully, maybe even humming. You demonstrate that caring for our shared space is a pleasant, normal part of life, not a dreaded punishment. You make the work itself look appealing.
And what if they still refuse?
Then you connect with them as a human. You might say, I can see you're feeling really tired right now. How about we do it together? I'll start with the blocks. You can start with the cars. You act as a partner, not a dictator.
That requires a whole lot more patience.
It requires immense patience. It is absolutely playing the long game. The threat, clean it or else, gets the room clean now, but it plants a seed of resentment and teaches them that cleaning is a punishment.
Right.
The partnership model might take a bit longer today, but it builds a child who understands the why behind cleaning and eventually takes ownership of it.
So it's a huge mental shift from how do I make this child do what I want to how do I help this child construct their own disciplined self?
Yes, you are respecting their intelligence. A child knows when they're being manipulated. They know it's a bribe. And on some level, they lose a little respect for you. When you treat them with dignity, we do this because we are people who care for our home, they will almost always rise to that level of respect you show them.
So when you say servant of the spirit, it implies that we're protecting something delicate.
We are. We are the guardians of that fragile, beautiful spark of intrinsic motivation. And every single time we stop ourselves from saying, good job, here's a sticker, and instead we say, you worked on that puzzle for so long, you must feel so proud of yourself. We are protecting that spark. We are turning their gaze inward toward their own satisfaction rather than outward toward our approval.
That's such a subtle but massive shift in language. You must be proud of yourself versus I'm proud of you.
It's everything. One builds a free citizen who validates themselves. The other builds a people pleaser who will spend their life looking for the next gold star.
This has been, it's heavy, but it's also incredibly hopeful. I think that's the feeling I get from this whole series. It shows us where we go so wrong, but then it points to this really beautiful, really respectful way to go right.
It is a path to freedom.
Yeah.
For the child, first and foremost, but honestly for the adult too. It is exhausting being a warden. It's so tiring to have to constantly be the police to negotiate the terms of every single bribe.
If you just eat 2 more peas, you can have the cookie.
It's a tiresome way to live.
I would much rather be a guide or a servant in this sense than a warden.
And the relationship you build is just so much richer. When you stop trying to control them, you can finally start to connect with them.
So let's just recap the journey we've been on today. We started with the complete absurdity of that medal in the naughty corner.
The ultimate proof that these external labels mean nothing when the soul is starving for something real.
Then we moved to the candy experiment, which proved that for a focused child, the deep nutrition of meaningful work is far more appealing than the empty sugar of reward. And we landed on this new identity. For the child, the free citizen who acts from an internal compass. And for the adult, the servant of the spirit who guides and protects that compass.
We move from the mechanics of slavery, which are fear and greed, to the mechanics of freedom, which is internal will.
And if this is resonating with you, if you want to really understand the depth of this and read the full stories and see the science behind it, because truly, we are just scratching the surface here, you have to go to the source.
Absolutely. The Secret of Childhood is not just a parenting book. It's a manual for understanding the construction of a human being.
We really encourage you to visit the Darul Kalima Library. You can find it at darulkalima.com. That's DARELKLEMA.com. Get your own copy. It's the best way to support the source and to, well, build the human.
And as you read it, try not to just read it as a parent thinking about your child. Read it as a human being reflecting on your own life, your own motivations. Ask yourself, are you working for the medal or are you working for the work?
That is the thought to leave everyone with. And we are not done. This series is going to continue.
Oh, we have something really special planned for next time. We're going to dive into what Montessori called the silence exercise.
Silence. With a group of small children? That sounds like another science fiction concept.
It sounds impossible, I know. But it's one of the most beautiful and profound discoveries she made. How a group of children discovered together that peace and silence can actually be more fun, more exhilarating than noise.
Okay, now that I have to hear. So, the takeaway from today: stop the bribes, start the respect.
And trust the child.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. Remember, we are all building humans every single day.
And we do it with host speaker and expert speaker, love for all and service to all.
We'll see you next time.